Alright, so I was in the middle of recording with my friends when the Chaos Dwarf trailer dropped. I rushed on over. I recorded my reaction to that. I spent a much longer time than the actual trailer's length talking about the trailer and going through and looking at the various camera shots. And I did not know Crib Assembly also released a blog to go with it. I should have looked at that before I wrapped the recording and uploaded it. Nonetheless, it's up there and it's my channel and I can be as amateur as I want to. But now that I've finished recording with my buddies Pink and Natty, I will be talking about this because I have not actually read this. So, looks like we got a blog here. Chaos Dwarfs aren't a secret, of course. They were pretty well the last army list that was guaranteed. Dogs of War, kind of iffy because how do you implement? April 13th, 10% off if you pre-order, all that usual stuff. I will be pre-ordering because I'm a dork and Crib Assembly owns my wallet. However, we got here the picture from the trailer. Like I said, we got the Iron Sworn, Iron Guard. What is their name? I don't know. The Infernal Iron Sworn, and we've got legendary characters. Oh, they're just announcing the legendary characters right here. Astragoth, Drazoth, Zoltan, and the Gordoos. Those make sense. I am shocked by Gordoos, though, because that raises the question... Oh, no, wait. Gordoos is a legendary hero. He's not a legendary lord. Okay. 3 ferocious and foul legendary lords. Only 3. Really, not 4. So I guess the Immortal Empire's map is already really claustrophobic. Not because it's small. The Immortal Empire's map is huge, but there are so many legendary lords by now that there's so little breathing room. There are a lot of situations where you are second enemy as soon as you start the campaign, or almost your first enemy when you start the Immortal Empire's campaign is another legendary lord. So there just wasn't much. Okay, so Astragoth Iron Hand, Drazoth the Ashen, Zoltan the Black. Curious to see what they'll do to make Zoltan the Black more interesting. And then Gordo's Backstabber is a legendary hero. This maniacal group intend to construct the Great Drill of Hashut. So that is the Realms of Chaos campaign goal, with which they will burrow through the very fabric of reality itself to conquer both the known world and perhaps also far more. Releasing 3 legendary lords with an additional legendary hero is new for us, and is the path we'll be following for future releases. You told us you wanted more legendary heroes, and we agree. These new heroes can be recruited and used by all of the lords in any given pack, offering up a lot more playstyle flexibility than before. Okay, so we're not quite going for the Champions of Chaos DLC pack style for going forwards, but we kind of are. So that's the gimmick. They're going to be going through, and each of the races that get DLCs, probably from here on out, Chaos Dwarfs are probably going to be the last DLC race for a minute. It seems, I mean, depending on how soon they want to do Dogs of War. I shouldn't make hard predictions. That's just how you get egg on your face and look like a big... but yeah, that is definitely more interesting than the post-Champions of Chaos setup, because that could get boring once you get past, like, the Empire, the Greenskins, and the Vampire Counts. I think would be interesting to get Champions of Chaos style DLC packs, but beyond them, kind of like how much content can you really add? You know, a lot of the races in the game now are already full up for you. This does make an obvious DLC pack for Cathay as well, because the 3 legendary lords will be the remaining dragons. And presumably at some point, Monkey King will be free LC? I don't know. We'll see how the free LC is going to go, because that, of course, will build. Okay, 3 legendary lords and a legendary hero. That's going to make the Chaos Dwarfs feel weird, though, because they're not going to have a 4th legendary lord. They'll be kind of in the same space as Norska, though not as bad as Norska. Norska, it's just awkward how Norska lords are. They just really feel like the odd ones out. Because the new Warhammer 3 races, well, even Kislev has, Cathay and the Demon races, don't feel that odd. They just don't feel like they're properly finished yet. They haven't received their DLC yet. But comparing Norska to the other races of Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 feels rough, because they've still only got the 2 legends. But Norska should definitely be the next up for an overhaul. Okay. In the case of Gordoos, his appearance improves hobgoblins across the board, allowing more players to tap into his amazingly quick wolf cavalry. Does that mean that Gordoos provides faction-wide buffs to hobgoblins? That'd be interesting. As the first of a series of deep dives into this upcoming troublesome trio, we will be reading about Astragoth and Gordoos. Astragoth looks good. Is this the in-game model? This kind of looks like art, but this... No, that's... I can't tell if this is art or not. This looks like art. Either which way, that is a winning Astrogoth design. So I'm a fan of that. I like that the Chaos Dwarfs aren't just all black and red as a color scheme. They have they have some extra color to them. I like that. Astrogoth Ironhand is the oldest living sorcerer prophet of the Chaos Dwarfs, the high priest of Hashut, and once the most potent sorcerer to walk the plane of Zarduk. Zarduk, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Astrogoth's waning powers are results of prolonged petrification, leaving him bound to a mechanical device that grants him movement. Astrogoth takes his place on the battlefield as an armored caster with a mixed spell lore, fire and Hashut, able to cover plenty of ground at a respectable speed and hold up his own close against enemy combatants. Okay, so yeah, we're getting the unique lore of Hashut as well. And let's open up this picture here and take a look at it. These orc slaves look like they have great weapons, which is weird because the mainline greenskin army can't actually recruit orc boys with great weapons. Odd. Tab. On the campaign side of things, he has a few more tricks up his metal sleeves, excelling in the Tower of Zar by generating more conclave influence than any other Dawi Zar, all of which makes him all the tougher to usurp. Okay, so that's the Chaos Dwarf's racial mechanics there. We don't know what those mean yet. Gordoos. Oh, that was Gordoos in the trailer there that I said had the sick design. Yeah, he looks great here. That is awesome, an awesome armor set. He's clearly enjoying himself. Got a nice axe. Yeah, there we go. Having outlived most of his fellow tribal leaders, Gordo's backstabbers' naturally distrustful disposition and lashings of cunning grant him an enduring talent for survival. With thick scars crisscrossing his shoulders, Gordo's luck carries him far on the battlefield. Focusing on melee combat, this sneaky fella works his way behind enemy lines, either on foot or mounted atop a giant wolf for faster movement. What is this picture? This is of course, his concept art, but what's this down here? Oh, these are the pictures they used for examples of the way they wanted. Gameplay-wise, Gordoos is a force to be reckoned with, adding some serious versatility to hobgoblin armies. His presence in an army grants incredibly powerful buffs and stat bonuses, and he has some extremely handy skills. He can keep ammunition flowing with Shoot 'em, or enable Vanguard deploy for all hobgoblins with Sneaky. Okay, so not just the Wolf Riders, all hobgoblins. Vanguard deploy. Get the Gits summons a band of hobgoblin cutthroats, who will then fade away after a limited time. I don't have a problem with the way summon units work, but that is a little bit silly that he can summon a unit of hobgoblins that will disappear after about, I don't know, a minute. He can be nestled among your army or break off from the pack to cover ground with a lesser generic lord. Alright, here we go. Let's see. How do the Chaos Dwarfs work? It looks like the Chaos Dwarfs got... Oh, this is different. Okay, so 3 provinces, Zorno School, World's Edge Mountains, High Pass. We've got where they control the slave intake. This almost seems like they took the slave feature off the Dark Elves to give it to the Chaos Dwarfs. Weird and not a great look. A lot of people mad. Okay, labor versus workload. The amount of work required in this province. Increase the size of your labor force to meet its demands. There are always more mine shafts to be dug. Get more captives to line the passageways to reap the rewards to be found there. Workload is increased when building mines and outpost settlements. A higher workload means you'll need to maintain more labor in the province in order to maximize the output of raw materials. Okay, so you got an efficiency rate and you got... Okay, so the goal of slavery as the... Oh, I just looked up. Okay, we've got some kind of button there. Then we've got 3 extra resources on top of money. And then that Realm of Chaos drill button, which I assume won't be there anymore with Empire, so I'll never see. Okay, so... Purpose of the slavery mechanic is not to generate money in and of itself, like it was with the Dark Elves. It is to generate materials. Curious. Okay, so they didn't just rip the old Dark Elf slavery mechanic. That's already kind of better than what I was expecting, really. No thriving faction in Warhammer 3 is complete without a robust economy to fund their infernal war machine. The Dawi Zar are no different. And that's true, but I think the Empire could stand to have a more interest. The Chaos Dwarfs need laborers. Fire them by besting their foes in battle or via the convoy mechanic, which we'll have more detail about in the 3rd part of this series in a couple of weeks. So they've got a equivalent to the Cathayan trade convoy mechanic. maybe it's raiding convoy. Like you get to send artificially built raider armies into the old world or into Cathay to gather slaves. Because I was kind of wondering, the Chaos Dwarf lore talks a lot about how the Chaos Dwarfs every now and then send an army of raiders out to the lands of men, dwarves, and elves to gather slaves. But in the way Total War Warhammer works, you don't have a lot of motivation to do that because you want your armies to be generally closer to home in case you need them. And you want to focus on picking up more territory if you can, unless you can make a lot of money through stacking. Raw materials are crucial for the Chaos Dwarf's empire building, and a necessity for constructing the more advanced buildings and structures. Beyond that, they can be converted into armaments that unlock the true strength of the dwarf's fiery military. Acquire labor leads to harvest raw materials, leads to construct nightmarish buildings and forge hellish weapons, leads to bolster the Chaos Dwarf. So it's a unique resource they can spend for their higher tier buildings and also maybe unit upgrades? Can't quite tell yet. And the power of the treasury. Earned by winning battles, constructing outposts, utilizing factories, and selling armaments via convoys, Chaos Dwarfs have many avenues with which to earn some serious coin, and it's up to you to ensure the gold keeps. Okay, so it's a tech tree of some kind that goes up 4 tiers. Called the Tower of Tsar, apparently. Okay, this isn't the treasury. This is the Tower of Tsar. That's the next mechanic. Okay. Power of the treasury is just... Oh, it's just saying money. Okay, it's just trying to say money. Alright, so you make money by selling... You make raw materials, you turn that into refined gear, you sell that to other factions via trade convoys. Okay, so maybe the trade convoys are like the trade caravans of Cathay, but for the bad guys. You sell the stuff to greenskins, vampire counts, chaos warriors, what have you. Okay, so yeah. Constructing outposts also gives you money. Okay, when they say outposts, for a second I thought outposts meant like ally outposts. No, I'm going to wager what that means is you can only really settle in the Darklands and maybe a couple other specific regions. Otherwise, you probably have the Wood Elf mechanic where occupying lands outside your own makes weaker outpost settlements. Okay, that's a surprise. Makes sense, though, because the Chaos Dwarfs don't really have much of it building empires outside of... building serious empires outside of Zarnagrund. Tower of Tsar stands tall within the Chaos Dwarf capital of Zarnagrund. It's a political battleground for the Dowie Tsar, and key to their success is an almighty faction of chaos. Vying for seats within the tower, so we're handling Chaos Dwarf politics here, which Astragoth is the king of, and Drazoth is the opposite direction, got poo-pooed out of. Vying for seats within the tower will grant a diverse range of bonuses and rewards to the Chaos Dwarfs. It also presents an opportunity for some competition between the factions outside of warfare thanks to multiplayer compatibility, adding a cooperative edge to the campaign experience in the form of districts. Districts can benefit the entire culture of the Chaos Dwarf, encouraging all to work together and enhance Zarnagrund for everyone's benefit. With the chance to experiment with a variety of playstyles and try your hand at some sneaky diplomacy with serious backstabbing, the Tower of Tsar is one of the most in-depth, unique... Okay, so this is a mechanic that all three, Astragoth, Drazoth, and Zatan, will be sharing at the same time. They will all be working towards, and they can simultaneously buff themselves. Okay, there's seats and there's district. Okay, so you can spend some kind of resource. That bull's head, what is that bull's head? Looking at this screen, got up here, raw materials, then that looks like crafted materials, then some kind of bull's head. What material? Do they say which? Okay, they don't seem to say what resource that is or how you... But this is the first of 3 blogs, so presumably there'll be more later on. Okay, so whatever resource that is, it seems to almost be like Hashut Faith. Makes it where you can get buffs for your armies, and possibly buffs for all Chaos Dwarf armies. So the Chaos Dwarfs want to politic amongst themselves, but at the same time, they don't want to actively go to war. So I imagine the story is probably different for Drazoth, because Drazoth seems to have less gain in the political game, so he's probably more interested in killing Astragoth and Zatan. I wonder if this means that all 3 of them will start out in the Darkland. If it's based around... if the entire gameplay structure for the Chaos Dwarfs is built around the Darkland. I'll be curious. Okay, so just as tier 1 stuff. Sorcery District, research rate plus 10%. That's strong. Military District immediately causes wall breaches when besieging. That's strong. And Industry District increases output of the raw materials and armament. Okay. And we don't get to see the districts. We don't get to see what any of these effects are, but I'm sure that 2 weeks out ahead from release, guys like Milk and Cookies will get a preview of the game. Get a preview of the DLC, so they'll probably be able to dissect it better. And then talking about the battle map. Oh, the battle side. Okay, we got Bull Centaurs. Let me take a look at these models. Some of them look like they're armored and some aren't. I don't know if that's actually a gameplay difference or if that's just different unit sets. Serving the Legion of Asgore, the Bull Centaurs are a monstrous addition to the Chaos Dwarf roster. Rocking the upper torso of a Chaos Dwarf and the body of a ferocious bull, these powerful melee combatants are fearsome beasts that, thanks to their high armor and favorable stats, can play both offensive and defensive roles. But don't let their... Okay, lore talk. And then the Lamasu. Bounding across the battlefields on 4 legs isn't the only way to maneuver your units. Bale Taurus is not that. That is... The Bale Taurus is a gigantic monster with, again, the body of a bull, but this time coupled with a membranous... There's probably a better way to pronounce that. Wings of a dragon. Ridden into battle or flying solo, the Bale Taurus burns with horrific intensity. Weapons that strike it liquefy into molten metal. Oh, I'm getting... It's been already 5 hours, 6 hours of recording here, folks. I'm having the brain melt. Weapons that strike it will liquefy into molten metal, and the monster sets the ground ablaze as it moves, ready to devour its foes whole. More commonly spotted, Bale Taurus won't be the only one on the battlefield, however. The Great Bale Taurus, reserved for the most powerful Great Dwarfs, will be An for those wanting to go bigger. Okay, so I'm going to guess the standard Bale Taurus is a mount for both Lords and Heroes. Great Bale Taurus is a mount for only Lords. Standard Bale Taurus you could probably take as a standard battlefield unit, kind of like a Manticore. Great Bale Taurus can only be taken as a mount. That's my guess. The Lamasu, which is thought to be a rare and interesting mutation of the Great Tauri, is not a being of rage, but instead a manifestation of sorcerous intelligence. Though not as powerful as its cousin in combat, the Lamasu is instead able to employ magic, launching fireballs at the enemy or transporting allies on shadowy mounts in a blink of the eye. Okay, so he either gets the fireball spell or he gets the ability to give other units stalk. Interesting. Kind of reminds me of the Quaddle. Alternatively, as they are blessed with an uncanny, insidious charisma that can befuddle enemies, they may simply choose to let death creep mysteriously through enemy ranks, so they have some kind of debuff and an AoE around themselves. Interesting. Okay, and up next we'll be sharing a more in-depth look at Astrogoth Iron Hand and the gameplay elements discussed above in an upcoming Forge of the Chaos Dwarf showcase. So keep an eye on the official Total War channel and socials for info. Beyond that, we've got more lore, blogs, and the videos on the way, showcasing the other 2 legendary lords from the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs, and we'll have a full set of patch notes when the Chaos Dwarfs arrive. Okay. So it seems like what they wanted to do here, you could tell with Dark Elves, they ran into an issue in Warhammer 2. They wanted a more complex economic mechanic system built around slavery, where it could wreck you or build you, depending on your choices. The system wound up being kind of obtuse and difficult to understand. You just boiled it down to more slaves equals better. And it rarely was ever a problem. It was pretty well never a problem, especially with public order being in the state that it is in at the end of Warhammer 2 and now into Warhammer 3, where rebellions aren't a thing. So, the decision to change Dark Elf slavery mechanics to where you spend it for certain abilities, and your buildings rapidly drain the slave count, so it's something you need to constantly keep up, I actually am a fan of that change. I know there's a lot of people who don't, but at the end of the day, I always thought the Dark Elves were a bit boring because they just got so quickly to the point where they made money hand over fist without needing to care that much. You usually just figured out, okay, I'm starting as Malekith, I'm starting right next to Haggrafe. Haggrafe is a fantastic money-making province. I am going to turn all of my provinces to reject slaves except Haggrafe, which will encourage slave growth. And after that, you just keep gathering slaves and making more and more money. It's kind of like when the High Elves lost the Administrator bonus. I know people hated that because they hate to lose any... People hate to see any nerfs to what they play. Even if the nerf was actually a good nerf and made the character or race more interesting to play. That's kind of how it is. for the little bit of time I put in with the Dark Elves in Warhammer 3, which admittedly I've not put in as much time with the Dark Elves in Warhammer 3 as I did in Warhammer 2, I thought it was a lot more interesting the way the slavery mechanic was run. The Chaos Dwarfs having a mechanic that seems to be less so more slaves, more money, but instead more slaves, that's the wrong image. More slaves, more resources to sell in your trade caravans, I think is more interesting. And I think it's also more interesting than the Cathayan trade caravan. The Cathayan trade caravan mechanic is also just kind of make money. There's a chance that your investment goes belly up, you get, wiped out by a bunch of ogres, especially when you get into the late stages of the Warhammer 3 campaign and you are enemies with half the damn map between you and the ogres. But it is just invest $1,000, get $9,000 after 9 turns. And that's not really much of a gameplay question. There's no push or pull to that, as Masahiro Sakurai would say on his YouTube channel. Videos there. Well, I shouldn't say there's no push or pull. That's a lot. You can lose the investment. So there's the question of, do I want to go for higher profits or invest in having a safer board skill tree? But this just seems like it's less just make money on its own. I don't know. I'll have to see. Maybe it's actually a really dumb, bad system that sucks. We'll see. I doubt it, but it might be. What are these labor actions? One has to be raise control, one has to be raise money, one has to be raise Ashut faith, or whatever that is. Yeah, I'm interested to see this. Okay, hang on. Actually, take a look at this. I just now noticed, in the corner here, you can see Seep Gore belongs to whoever has this banner of a skull with lava pouring out of its eyes, and the top of it has exploded, and there's fire coming out. So that's someone's faction banner. That's like maybe Astrogoth's banner, given that they're owning... Who would start out... This guy doesn't have Zard Nogrun, so it's probably not Astrogoth. Astrogoth would probably be the one who starts out in Zard Nogrun. So this is probably more likely Zatan the Black would be more likely to start out in Zor Norskul, while Drazoth the Ashen will probably start out in the Black Fortress. So Drazoth could also just start out outside of the Darklands. He may be the one guy who does that. The one out of them that would have the most logical... No, Drazoth and Zatan both have logical reasons to start outside the Darklands. Anyways. Drazoth... Excuse me. Yeah, that's probably Astrogoth's banner. Which we then see again here, which implies to me that it's a race for each of the factions to take one of these buffs. But it looks like... Okay, this is the districts menu. Okay, I should have read that first. Okay. So these are used... So it looks to me... Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. It's taken a while for this to compute because I'm having the... Haven't stopped talking for 6 hours, brain rot. But it's starting to compute. I'm starting to understand it. So the seats menu is one that only you benefit from. If you push to take that, only you get the buff from it. Districts, though, are faction-wide buffs. I mean, not just faction-wide, race-wide buffs. Interesting. So I think what we see here is that I think that is Zatan the Black's banner. I'm not for certain, but I think that's Zatan the Black's banner. That is probably Drazoth's banner, because Drazoth has that cup he holds in his hand. That bowl that he holds in his hand that's always on fire. So it looks like... I wonder if there even are non-legendary Chaos Dwarf factions, because there isn't that much space in the Darklands. And Imric and Grimgor are already camped out there, plus the Darklands Orcs and the Slaves of Jazar, though the Darklands Orcs are gone, thank God. And that's going to be another question. In Immortal Empires, Grimgor is going to be making Astrogoth's life a living hell. Because Grimgor is one of the worst legendary lords to fight in Total War Warhammer. Especially in the early to mid-game, before Grimgor has declared war on everybody else on the map and thus spread himself too thin. So that's going to be another thing. Are they going to, nerf Grimgor's AI, make it less aggressive, or just try to encourage him to go north instead of going south? Because there's going to be a lot of people who pop in the Chaos Dwarf DLC, start up Astrogoth's campaign, and then have serious, stress and get locked into a feud with Grimgor for about a few dozen turns. Not everyone might be a big fan of that, though there will certainly be a lot of people who are a big fan. Imric is probably going to be kind of a joke. You can wipe him off the face of the earth. Kugath and Gorst you can probably deal with. Of course, the trick is you gotta auto-resolve them. Don't fight them in an actual battle, because the zombies suck in auto-resolve, but they're great in an actual battle. Okay, I think I'm starting to understand this. I'm starting to get the gist of it. I was wondering, with the Chaos Dwarfs, how do you give them an interesting mechanic that isn't just slavery? That isn't just Dark Elf slavery? The trade caravan thing, I think, is still a little bit odd, but we'll see how that one works when they release the blog for it. But this Chaos Dwarf politics thing is actually an interesting thing to balance between trying to give yourself buffs to get ahead of the other Chaos Dwarfs versus some buffs that may be better than the selfish buffs, but benefit your kind of rivals as much as they benefit you. And focusing on the idea of Astrogoth, Drazoth, and Zaton as all rivals for control of the Tower of Zar, especially because in the lore, not only are Astrogoth and Drazoth kind of established rivals, and Astrogoth was the one who cast Drazoth out from the Tower of Zar, but on top of that, Zaton himself is not a sorcerer prophet, but he is the right-hand man of the current most magically powerful sorcerer prophet, who probably himself is interested in overthrowing Astrogoth and keeping Drazoth, down on the ground where he probably believes he belongs. This looks like some interesting stuff, but we can't entirely judge until we get to really see. Okay. Yeah, that is a surprise, though, the legendary character change. I have to assume Dogs of War are probably coming at some point just because they are a potential DLC race, and there's really not any candidates left. At the same time, it may be a bit before we see Dogs of War. I don't know. I don't want Dogs of War to come out in the way that they probably will, because I don't want the Dogs of War DLC to compete with the Southern Realms mod by Kataf, which is excellent. It was great in Warhammer 2, and it's phenomenal in Warhammer 3. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. Very, very fun campaign. Very, very tall. You build up a very small supply of cities with very expensive buildings, but are hugely profitable, and a really great garrison building that means you don't need to babysit your cities all the time. So it's a much more adventure across the world and send the money back home kind of campaign, which is what the Southern Realms should be. However, if they did do Dogs of War, yeah, this setup works for them probably a lot better. They'd probably go with Borjo the Besieger, Lucrezia Belladonna. What other legendary lords did the Dogs of War get? Midas the Mean, maybe, but he'd be more likely to be a legendary hero. Like, that's... Maybe if the Dogs of War, if they tried to take away the specific Southern Realms focus and focus on them as just ambiguous, diverse armies, mercenary armies of the world. If they tried to focus on that identity of them, that would be interesting and not contrast with the Southern Realms mod. But this does also make me wonder about hypothetical DLCs going backwards. Because, hang on, let's see. Releasing 3 legendary lords with an additional legendary hero is new for us and is the path we'll be following for future releases. That is not super specific, which in marketing you don't want to go for super specific promises because you don't want people to say that you didn't follow through on your promises. But that does kind of imply that's going to be the future of Lord packs as well. And we were kind of wondering that, and I believe Andy Hall did say in an interview the other day, which I have not gotten around to watching, but thankfully I read the considerably more moderate summary made by Syl, I think, and posted by Kataf, rather than the initial summary that was released that went, Andy Hall confirmed Nippon, woo! No, bud, sorry. Wait for the mod. Going off that, Andy Hall apparently at some point in the interview did say, and I could be wrong about this, read the interview or watch the interview yourself if you get the chance. I'll be doing that after this because I'd like to go forward informed about this kind of stuff. But I believe what was said was that they are not planning on doing the Lord versus Lord pack style anymore. The 2-race Lord pack of, here's 3 units for one race, here's 3 units for another, here's a Lord type, here's a hero type, here's a legendary Lord, here's a legendary Lord. What they plan to do is experiment with other models, which this apparently is. And I have to imagine it's because there are so many Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 races that are, for all intents and purposes, done. And with the Warhammer 3 races, like Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, are all going to run into the issue of what's left to add in terms of units. Like, you can say maybe the Great Spine Beast, the Great Spined Chaos Beast, whatever that is, the Chimera, the Slaughter Brute, the Mutaleth Vortex Beast, but Crave Assembly doesn't seem too eager to rush into the idea of getting end times units. So, that holds them off from, say, the Skull Takers for Khorne, or Blight Kings for Nurgle, even though people really like Blight Kings and want Blight Kings. So, it kind of begs the question of, are they going to just give Kislev and Cathay some of these Lord Packs, while Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Khorne, all of them get free LC Legendary Lords? That would be odd, but it'd be interesting too. But I think the inevitable thing there is to look at it and go, okay, well, what races would obviously be good for this? And what races are probably the most in need of a Warriors of Chaos style makeover? And I can say visually, the three ugliest races in the game are Empire, Greenskins, and Vampire Counts. They could all use some makeover. And all three of those guys could benefit from 3 more Legendary Lords and a couple more units that are perhaps not so high budget. Knights Panther and Knights of the White Wolf are not going to be very high budget. Knights Panther especially are going to be pretty close to just being a reskin. They won't be using new animals. It'd be a waste. Or you can go with, the Vampire Counts. There's not really a possibility. It doesn't feel like you can really play a non-Von Karstein bloodline. You're getting little mercenary dudes from the Necrarchs or the Blood Dragons or the Lemans or the Strigoi, but it doesn't feel so much like you can play the Von Karstein bloodline. And they would be solidly built there for adding, as 3 Legendary Lords, let's say, Neferata, Wallach Harkon, and Zacharias the Everliving. I hate to leave out the Strigoi, but, add some Legendary Lords for the other bloodlines. And for a Legendary Hero, I mean, the sky's the limit. And focus more on that. Or the Empire's an easy one. Elspeth von Draken, Marius Lietdorf, the R. Ulrich, whatever his name was, Emil Valgir, I think. And then for a Legendary Hero, honestly, the R. Ulrich could end up being the Legendary Hero, and for the 3rd Legendary Lord, they go with, like, Kurt Helborg. Because, well, the Legendary Hero, they want to be available for each of the Legendary Lords available in that given DLC. The R. Ulrich Emil Valgir wouldn't work as a Legendary Hero for anyone except Min. I don't know, they'll figure it out. This is a big drop of information, a big drop of interesting information, really just in this paragraph, that requires a lot of rethinking future of Total War Warhammer 3 DLC, at least in my prediction. My predictions are near always wrong. Crave Assembly is very unpredictable, and never in a bad way, but very unpredictable. So, I do remember in the video... Oh, this sounds so stupid in hindsight. I remember right after they showed the reveal trailer for Warhammer 3, and they showed Cathay. And Cathay was just a place on the map at that time, of course. When they showed that, I remember at the time going, oh, well, the pre-order race has to be Nippon then. And... Ooh, if you're cringing, so am I. Alright, either which way, yeah, big drop of information. Lots of cool stuff. I am excited for the coming weeks. I will see you later, folks.